right, welcome to Talkin Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I have our monthly comparison of all the Bitcoin miners. So I've got a lot of charts and graphs to show you, analyzing all the Bitcoin miners' performance in the month of October. So if you're new to the channel, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Also, if everybody could please smash the like button, it really helps the channel out a lot, and I appreciate it. Lastly, you can become a member of the channel by hitting the join button on YouTube. So you hit the join button. If you don't see a join button, there should be a link below. Members get some members only content. In addition to that, we do a members only once a week live stream, and the members get to pick a video each week for me to do a deep dive on. So let's talk about the Bitcoin miners. Okay, list number one, Bitcoin production for the month of October. So some people may be surprised at this list. We still see Core Scientific at number one on this list. So I did do a separate video on Core Scientific if you want to see what's going on with them. Their mining operations continue, so they're still going to be number one, most likely, almost certainly again in November. So as their situation unfolds, they do continue to mine the most Bitcoin by far. So they're locked in at number one. It still looks likely, even given the dramatic circumstances surrounding Core Scientific, that they will be, from an operational standpoint, from a production standpoint, they will be number one all 12 months of the year 2022. It looks like. But the year's not over yet. The number above the stock ticker is where they rank this month. The number below the stock ticker is where they ranked last month. So you'll see Marathon moved from 5th place last month in monthly production to 2nd place this month. Well, 2 months ago, they were 10th place. So they've gone 10th, 5th, 2nd. However, they have run into some production problems in the month of November. So we will see if they can hold on to that 2nd spot. It looked like they had grabbed that 2nd spot and they were going to start running away with it. But November, they're going to struggle, I think, to even stay pace with what they did in October, but the month's only half over, so we'll see if they can maintain that 2nd place position. CleanSpark, 532 Bitcoin mined. So for Marathon, 615, that was their all-time record. For CleanSpark in 3rd at 532, that was their all-time record. Riot finished in 4th. They moved up from 6th place the previous month, so they have started to ramp up their operations. And over the summer months, one of the reasons their Bitcoin mining is down is they get compensated for electricity that they give back to the grid. So they do make a lot of money on that. So their Bitcoin equivalents, if you were to convert the energy credits they get, would be higher numbers, but I don't use that. I just use the actual Bitcoin that they mined. So they mined 509 Bitcoin in the month of October. That gets them into 4th. Bitfarms is in 5th. They were in 2nd, actually, in the month of September. That was the 3rd month in a row that Bitfarms had finished in 2nd. They've moved from 2nd to 5th, but that's not because their production has decreased. They continue to have very solid production. It's just that a few of these other miners have been ramping up and finally reaching, particularly Marathon and Riot, are finally just starting to begin to reach the numbers that we thought they would be at all along this year. So whereas Bitfarms stayed fairly steady, some of these other miners moved ahead. Iris Energy moved another notch up the list. They were in 7th last month and 8th the month before, so they continue to have very steady growth. 448 is their all-time record Bitcoin mined, so they broke their record as well. In 7th place is Hive Blockchain. You'll see they've moved down from 4th place. So obviously this is the first pure month. October, there was no Ethereum mining. Ethereum has moved to proof of stake, so they're at 307 Bitcoin equivalent. They're still very firmly in the top 10, and I still believe, I said 3 or 4 months ago, I think these 10 companies are almost certainly going to be the top 10 at the end of the year. The question is, where are they going to move around? And we have seen some big movements. Okay, so HUT finished in 8th. They were 9th last month. They mined 299 Bitcoin, so they have been fairly consistent. Gree came in at 269, so their production was down a little, but relatively even, just probably down based on the difficulty level. So they finished with 269, and then in 10th place is Argo Blockchain with 204. There's several companies on this top 10 list that are in some type of trouble, be it a little bit or a lot. The number one on this list, Core Scientific, their stock has crashed over the last month or two, and they're staring bankruptcy in the face. So that doesn't mean that they're going bankrupt, but they have put everybody on notice that that is now a very good possibility. So at number 1, we have some problem. At number 10, Argo Blockchain has had some big problems. Okay, so that is the top 10 producers for the month of October. Now I want to look at year to date. So this is what everybody's done from January 1st through October 31st. Okay, so here we go. You're going to see in first place by a mile. So obviously they are going to remain in first place for the rest of 2022. Now, 2023 is going to be a different story. I don't think this list of 10 is going to be the top 10 list. There will be a lot of changes to come in this space. Some of these companies may not even make it through the year 2023. Obviously, this all depends a lot on what happens to the price of Bitcoin over the next 12 to 14 months. But as we look at year to date, you're going to see Core Scientific is so far out in front. You know, they're much more than double the second place. So what I've done is, let's just establish Core Scientific is in first place. I've made a separate chart showing the rest because I think this is a little more illustrative versus just Core Scientific having a huge blue line and everybody else not. This is what number 2 through 10 look like, because you see it's very competitive here at the top. Riot has mined 4,356. Hive is just a little bit behind them. Now, remember with Hive, those are Bitcoin equivalents because they did mine a lot of Ethereum this year, but 4,274, and then Bitfarms at 4,219. I think there's 3 or 4 companies that stand a chance of finishing in second place. So this is a very competitive race for second. And again, being in first is not necessarily a good thing because Core Scientific is in first by a mile, but unfortunately they had to borrow $1 billion to do it, and their entire business is in jeopardy as a result. So each one of these Bitcoin miners has a very different philosophy on how they run their business. So as always, I have to tell you, this is not financial advice, and please do your own due diligence before investing because there truly are very different business models here, even though they're all doing essentially the same thing, which is mining Bitcoin. So we've got Riot at 2, Hive at 3, Bitfarms at 4. So those 3 are very competitive for second place. Then you've got Cleanspark at 3,622, but Cleanspark is catching up because they've grown their exahash rate dramatically this year. So they are still potentially in the race to finish second on the year. Marathon is in 6th place. Marathon, I thought, was going to make a run up towards second place, but now it's looking more and more difficult for them to get there based on their performance in the month of November, but I can't rule it out. Marathon potentially could have a good second half of November and have a big December, and possibly they could finish in second place. So you're going to see this is going to be in November and December a very interesting race as to who finishes second. And again, unfortunately, the company that's finishing first is struggling greatly. Okay, then we go down to number 7, Hut. They're at 3,169, so they've had a solid year. They have slowed down their growth intentionally, so I expect them to stay just about where they are. Gree is at number 8 with 2,318, so you can see there's a big drop-off between 7 and 8. So that top 7 remained the same the entire year. Nobody was able to crack that top 7. This is the same, not in the same order, but it's the same 7 companies that have been 1 through 7 all 10 months so far this year, and I expect that will probably be true for all 12 months, but we'll see. Iris Energy at 2021, they are coming on strong, so if anybody stands a chance at maybe cracking into this list, it's them. I think it's a little bit too late, but in 2023, I expect them to be very competitive and higher up on this list. Argo Blockchain is in 10th. They're less than 2,000, 1,812. So they are in 10th. I think that's the best they're going to finish. The company that's in 11th, I think, is Bit Digital. They're just about half of 10th place. So there's really nobody else even vying to get into the top 10. So that's why I say this is the top 10. It's just a matter of what order are they going to finish in. And that is important. Okay, so here's each company's exahash at the end of October of 2022. So October 31st, basically going into November. You'll see Core Scientific's at 14.4 exahash, so once again, they are way out in first place. However, a bunch of these companies had big leaps. Marathon jumped up to 7.0 exahash. Riot at 6.9, so they're in a close struggle for second. Cleanspark's up to 5.1 exahash. They're one of the 2 biggest growing companies of the year this year. By the numbers, Cleanspark, Iris, and Bitfarms are the 3 companies that had the most growth this year as a percentage. So you'll see Cleanspark got over 5 exahash. I expect them maybe to get to somewhere between 6 and 7 by the end of the year. Bitfarms is at 4.2 exahash. They've let us know that their year-end target is 5.0 exahash. Iris Energy is at 3.9 exahash. They came into this year with almost no exahash, so they have grown drastically. Hut is at 3.07. They've let us know that their target for the end of the year is 3.5. And then Hive is at 2.28. Hive will increase over the next 6 months. They've put big purchase orders in. They bought the Intel ASIC mining chips. They're having custom-made machines, so their number will go up. I'm just not sure when they're going to start receiving those machines. So right now they find themselves in 10th place at 2.28 exahash, and that is just their Bitcoin mining exahash. Okay, mining efficiency. This is an important one to me, and we're seeing a trend at the top of this list. There's a few of these companies that require further explanation, but if you look at the top of the list, Bitfarms was number 1 this month at 116. You're going to notice there were companies earlier in the year were in the 130s or pushing 140. Well, the difficulty level has increased greatly on the Bitcoin network. So as it gets harder and harder to mine Bitcoin, you're going to mine less Bitcoin per exahash. But 116 is still a great number. So Bitfarms was in 3rd place last month. They're in 1st place this month. And again, sometimes the difference between 1st and 4th or 5th is only 1 or 2 or 3 coins per exahash. So these are very close numbers for the people who are at the top. Hive Blockchain is in 2nd, and this is just a measurement of their Bitcoin mining only. Iris Energy was number 3. For some reason last month they popped down to number 8, but they have been normally near the top of this list. Gree is at number 4. Last month they were at number 2. Cleanspark is at number 5. Last month they were at number 4. There's some consistency at the top of this list. Then we go to HUT at 97. Then we have a drop-off. Core's at 90. So to me, this drop-off to 90 or under 90, that's a little bit lagging behind. You know, anywhere around 100 to 115, I think, is being competitive with the industry. By the time you get down to 90, you're starting to not be competitive. Marathon was at 88. Some of these companies, I do think, will get more efficient over time, but they're growing so fast that they're not gaining the full efficiencies of being an up-and-running operation like some of these other companies are. So Marathon in 8th at 88. Argo Blockchain at 9th at 82. They really, in my mind, I don't know any excuse as to why they underperform in efficiency. So to me, that is a little bit worrisome in addition to all the other things that are going on at Argo Blockchain. So they are lagging everybody for sure. Lastly, Riot finished in 10th place at 74, but Riot does participate in selling energy and curtailing their Bitcoin mining. So we always have to look at that one in context. In the winter months, I think you're going to see them be much more competitive, but I am looking for them to improve this number. 74 is an exaggeration because, again, some of their time is downtime that they get paid for with energy credits. So that is automatically going to reduce their production per exahash, but they should be amongst the leaders because in the months where they don't curtail, they're basically all immersion cooling at this point. So we should start to see some of the benefits of that. But we will see. So that's something I'm going to have a close eye on over the next, 3 to 6 months. Okay, this is Bitcoin production versus Bitcoin sales. So we started out by looking at the amount that each company produced. And here you're going to see a red line of how many Bitcoin each company sold. So in a lot of these instances, companies are selling most, if not all. A few of these companies are selling more Bitcoin than they mined. Core Scientific sold 2,284 Bitcoin. You're going to see when we get to the next list, that was basically all the Bitcoin they had. Marathon, conversely, sold none of their Bitcoin. They are still hodling 100%, although I think that they may be running into some trouble going forward. I'm not sure they're going to be able to continue that policy. They have not said they're switching, but with Bitcoin at these low numbers, the math is getting a little bit different for Marathon. So Cleanspark funds their growth, and they have had massive growth this year, so they sold a lot more than they mined. 532 was their all-time record for number mined, but they sold 836, and you're going to see that in their exahash growth in November and December. So Riot mined a little bit more than they sold. Bitfarms typically sells all the Bitcoin they mine, so I think that number's usually the same. Iris Energy also sells all the Bitcoin they mine, so that number's the same. Hive Blockchain actually sold more Bitcoin than they mined. HUT 8 is really the last true hodler. They still, you'll see, they mined 299, they sold 0. I expect that to continue for the rest of the year. Gree sells all the Bitcoin they mine as they mine it as well, so that number is the same. And Argo Blockchain mined 204, but they sold 578. So they are in a cash crunch. The reason that they sold is they needed the cash. Okay, this is the last list. This is the Bitcoin hodl position. There are a few that have grown, but most of the companies over the course of this year have ended up with less Bitcoin at the end of the year than they had at the beginning of the year. Several companies have sold all their Bitcoin. So I'll start from the top. There's still 3 companies that are kind of separating themselves from the rest. Marathon has 11,285 Bitcoin. Now, they did buy about 5,000 of those Bitcoin at the beginning of 2021, so that's not all self-mined, but they have continued to hodl 100% in the year 2021 and the year 2022. I do think there's a chance they will sell some Bitcoin before before the end of the year. Hut 8 is in second place at 8,687. So that's second place overall, but from a self-mined standpoint, that is the most self-mined Bitcoin anybody has from a hodl position. So all of that is self-mined. So they're in a strong second place. Riot is in third place. They have 6,825. They've kind of taken a hybrid strategy. So they're in a very solid third place. And then you'll see a gigantic drop off into fourth place. There are still a couple other companies though that have some decent Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So Hive has 3,311, and then there's drop off. Bitfarms still does have 2,064. They had to sell a lot of their Bitcoin this year, but they've managed to hold on to these 2,000. So that's going to be the key for me. I'd like to see them get through the rest of this year as they restructure their debt, and I did just do a deep dive on Hive if you want to check out that video. But I'd like to see them hold on to these 2,000 coins if they can. Bit Digital is at 980 coins. They're not on any of the other lists. They are the only company that breaks into a top 10 list other than the 10 initial that we talked about. So they're still holding 980 coins. They have a very strong balance sheet. Their production is low. They're having a hard time on that end of the business, but their balance sheet is super strong, and their Bitcoin hodl position is now 6th overall. And then you're going to see a giant drop-off. CleanSpark pretty much sells most of their Bitcoin. They're at 290 Bitcoin. Argo Blockchain basically had to sell almost all of their Bitcoin last month just for cash flow purposes. Core Scientific, which at one point this year held over 10,000 Bitcoin, is now down to 62 Bitcoin. So essentially they've sold all their Bitcoin. Iris Energy and Gree sell all their Bitcoin as they mine it, so those numbers will remain zero. So you're going to see the industry has shifted away from this hodl strategy, and most of this is due to the fact that the liquidity has dried up in this industry, so getting new money in through debt or equity is very, very difficult. So a lot of these companies are being forced to liquidate their Bitcoin in order to pay for operations. Okay, so that's it. That's all the lists. That's the month of October. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you made it this far, please remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Also, remember that you can join the channel by hitting the join button. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.